Healing crystals, skincare routines, knitting a sweater, fitting in jeans. With Katie and Sarah, no need to worry, you're on a lady journey.
Your last week. Welcome to Lady Journey, everybody.
Welcome to Lady
Welcome
Journey.
to the bonus. We're finally getting it kicked off after we've been gabbing away for the past 2 hours, pretty much.
Yeah.
I had a solace during Thanksgiving. I actually spent Thanksgiving alone. And so but I needed to, because my parents were in town. I was doing like tons of activities with them. It was great. It was like, of course, I wanted to be there like every second, like guiding them around and, taking care of them, making sure everything was good because they were here with their friends too. And I wanted to make sure they had a good time. And then they left the Sunday before Thanksgiving. And my option was either I could literally get on a plane the next day and go to Mike's family, or I could just chill here for the week. And I didn't book any shows or anything. So I was just like, I love Mike's family and I wanted to go, but I was just like so glad that I ended up just not, because I was so emotionally exhausted just from like life and traveling. And, so I had a Thanksgiving alone, and I read this, I forget what it's called. It was like luxurious solitude or something. And it's like this whole thing of like, not being like, I'm lonely, like, because I told some people, like, they're like, what'd you do for Thanksgiving? I'm like, I just kind of like did a thing by myself. They were like, oh my God, just like,
I know, which is
like,
so weird, where you're like, oh, it's actually luxurious, I think, to spend some time on your own during the holidays.
oh, and it was the best. And and I needed it so much. I had like one of my little calm mints. I made stuffed acorn squash. I made my apple crisp. I watched TV. I had like a tiny glass of wine by myself, which I went to the wine shop and I didn't want them to know that I was by myself because I was nervous they would be concerned. So I got two. I got a small bottle, but then an also bottle, a bigger one. I'm like, this is, this one's for later. But that's totally a lady journey, having luxurious time alone.
Yeah, I just saw a TikTok. It was this lady and she did date night with her husband and I thought it was so cute. She went and bought matching PJs at Old Navy.
Oh, cute.
I know. And then just like blew up the air mattress and put it right by the bottom of the couch. So it meant that they could sleep on the couch while watching movies. It was like one of those tall air mattresses. So it was at couch level. So it was kind of like their footrest while they slept, and then just like made decadent hot chocolate and then amazing movie snacks. And I was like, yeah, that sounds amazing to me.
That sounds so inspiring. I want to do that for me and Mike, because we love to have a little movie night in and do like a cheese board or something. He would love that.
Do you think, I know it feels cheesy. Like I always kind of eye rolled about those couples or like those families that wear the same Christmas PJs, because they always seem to be like Mormon bloggers. And there is a part of me that's like, I kind of want to do it.
I really enjoy doing stuff just for myself so much more than I ever have now, like doing homemaking stuff like that. Like when I had my parents and their friends over, I did like a little wine and cheese spread, and it was just for us, but it was like, oh, this is it really is like a way to bring luxury into your life, that it doesn't mean that you have to buy like these new boots that are like $300, whatever. It's just like being intentional about what you're doing.
Yeah, I try to partake. Apparently also on TikTok, everyone's into like fancy tin fishes.
I've seen the tin fish. I love them.
It's huge. And so I was like, oh, maybe that's something I would like to do. I like trying out flavors. And sometimes sardines, I've had sardines in the past and I'm like too fishy, and even like anchovies, I can eat them, but I cannot know about them. They need to be mushed up in the sauce.
Yeah.
So I was like, let me try the smoked mussels on a corn chip. And I tried it and it did feel like fun and decadent. It makes that noise when you open the can and it feels so like zhuzhy to eat tin fish.
Yeah.
But fucking hated it.
Yeah.
Wish I could be a caviar person. It just seems so fun and decadent, but with at least with the smoked mussels, I only wasted $3.
Yeah, I mean, you know what? It's enough to try it. Those
Yeah.
people really, that was what I thought when I was watching that. I was like, these people really are into sardines in a way that I didn't think was a thing. Like, I like caviar, but I don't like a meal that's just consisting of like many various tins of fish. Like, I need a lot of other things, dips, carrots, veggies, like cut veggies, some cheeses. I need a sweet, I need a dried apricot. You know, I kind of really want a board where it's like a range of flavors, because the tin fish, and I do like sardines, like have it on a little sourdough toast or something as like a quick meal, but I don't like it so much that I'm like, ooh, Saturday night, I'm being naughty with my sardines.
Well, it was a few accounts and they're like really attractive women. And the way that they talk about this tin fish, I was like, maybe it's something I would like now, you know? Like maybe that was myself in my 20s when I had no class. Now, as an adult, maybe this is a taste that I could get into, because they really did sell it to me so hard that I was like, I think they're getting paid by these companies.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised. Big fish.
Yeah, because like, why all of a sudden tin fish has been around forever, but now all these accounts are like pushing tin fish, and when they display it on the TikToks, I'm like, it looks so good and fancy.
I think the thing that I like about it is just, you know, the fact that they're setting everything out and making like a cute little date night thing.
Yeah.
I saw this Grey Goose commercial a few years ago, and I always think about it. I think it was the most iconic commercial I've ever seen. It was like, how to celebrate by yourself. And it's this beautiful woman. She's in a beautiful hotel room, and she's clearly like just gotten the job, or she's just gotten a big promotion or something. So she is like in her gown in her hotel. She orders like a dozen oysters up to the hotel. She has her martini. She has a steak, and it's just her like having this really decadent meal, the celebration that's just totally her by herself. And then she like takes a bath, and it's just like it's so cool, because I think a lot of us, especially like people that are, you know, if you've been dealing with stuff, or maybe you just have, I don't know, issues in the back of your mind, feeling alone can be like sad and upsetting. But like in this, it was just like so triumphant and luxurious and like pampering. And I was like, oh my God, like that's actually what I want. Forget the vodka, you know, but like, that's the whole thing about like this intentional date night where it's like, this is enough.
Yeah. No, I feel like sometimes if you do go in with intent, like I'm going to put on a nice outfit, and maybe I did this quite a bit in my 20s and 30s, is I like to go eat at a restaurant bar.
Oh, love it.
And then when I drank, I'd always feel fancy being like, I'm getting a glass of wine, but then I would get so shit-faced later on that you're like, I completely negated the first part of the night.
Yeah, I had one of those. I went on this trip, I remember when I was like 23, and I took myself out to dinner because I was like, you know, I was lonely. I was really lonely on the trip. I was like doing a play or something, and I have to tell this on the regular show because this is a hoot, but like I like went out for like it was like a nice fish dinner. I had a drink, then I had another drink, then I like had a drink at the bar, and then I just kept drinking. I was just like alone by myself. And I remember I woke up and I was just naked in my bed, and I had candy, melted chocolate just on my body. And I was just like, what was that? You know, and it was like, that went awry. That was the time I wanted to do something luxurious for myself, and it went badly awry. But that was a part of a much larger episode in my life when I was in this weird one-woman play. But
what? Just think about like how lonely it is when you do the road by yourself. I can't imagine doing a one-woman play because you don't even have an opener to kind of like connect with.
There's nobody. There was only me and the director, who was this like weirder older man who was making me uncomfortable.
Yeah,
Sorry.
Well, it's like any guy that's like, I'm getting into the world of directing one woman shows can't be like a good person.
Yeah, God bless him, Jet.
I love the name Jet.
Jet Pence.
Oh
We
my
do not
God.
speak. We no longer keep in touch.
No, I had a friend that was doing a one-man show and he would do it like in the Mall of St. Louis. And I remember him reaching out to me because I happened to be at the Funny Bone the same weekend he was. And I was like, and it's one of those one-man shows that they franchise out.
Mhm.
And that's what he was doing. Like but you're like, God, this is so, like, that would be so lonely.
I mean, think how brutal stand-up is sometimes. Imagine being a one-man show performing in the mall, or a one-woman show, as we call it here on Lady Journey.
Yeah, anything's a one-woman show. It's because like at least in stand-up, you're performing your material and it's stuff that you are tied to personally, where like if I'm performing a one-man show of other material, then I'm like, oh, this means nothing to me actually.
Yeah, I've been in several one-woman shows. I was in one in college at the local children's museum. I played Anne Frank, if you can believe it. I played Anne Frank, and it was like actually kind of disturbing and sad because basically it was like a recreation of her house. I mean, it was cool. It was like a museum exhibit. It was like a recreation of her house. But then like I was Anne Frank and I'd have to like come out and I would tell like, mostly it was like groups of school kids. And I would do this like monologue. It was like a long monologue about like, I live here and I'm quiet, but I have hope. And I love my sister. You know, it was like very like almost kind of verbatim different parts of her diary. But then
Yeah.
there's like a Q&A, which is like, and then the kids would be like, what happened to Anne Frank? That was immediately they would ask that. And
Yeah.
I would be like, well, she died. She died in a horrific way, actually. I don't know if you guys want me to go into detail, but I do know.
I think Lori Kilmartin had a bit about that, about her son not knowing what happened to Anne Frank and then explaining, and you're like, good God.
Yeah,
Tragic.
It is such a horrible thing. And I get what they were trying to do, like with the play, where it was like, it was about like children that like bring hope, but it's like she actually had a very, very tragic life. And even though she is a hopeful figure and she was like a prolific writer, I mean, her diaries are incredible. It's just like, it's not really appropriate to talk about that stuff to people that are in third grade.
Yeah, to do the atrocities of mankind to third graders, like how can you even, even as an adult, I can't even wrap my mind around genocide.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's such a bummer. And I had to do, as part of that job, I was doing like tons of research on it. So I learned so much, and I was like, it just so depressing to be like, I guess I'm reading more now.
Yeah.
But to go back to what we were talking about earlier, I think the thing about the dates and the fish tray, I really like this. I really think that this is a Lady Journey, is like creating, like taking from mundane to special with like these little touches.
Yeah, I think intent is nice, like really making an effort, and just if you're going to watch TV at home, make it great.
Set up a whole thing. Well, I did a thing for Mike's birthday, which I want to show, because I think I set up the apartment really cute, and he loves that I do this. Just sharing for the journey here, so you can see like I do a little banner. I do like, I put like the gifts, and I love doing that too. And it's just like fun to wake up to that, you know?
Yeah, like a little. It doesn't even have to be much, you know what I mean? Like,
it's like enough of like, I put effort into this.
Yeah, a little dedication is nice to do. That's why I like doing my little welcome boxes, although I think I might pull back a little bit. I'm just like, oh my God, I'm spending so much money on welcome boxes.
My welcome box budget has got to be halved.
Sorry, guys. You get one snack now.
One snack and one water.
Yeah.
It's still very generous. it reminds me too of when I was teaching preschool, like we would do a lot of stuff like that at the preschool, which was so fun. And it was like this wonderful experience. Now that I've not worked there for 6 years, I like look back on it fondly. When I was working there, I was like, it's a nightmare and they're stealing from me. But I'm being taken advantage of. But like we had all these like fun, we had like tons of craft supplies. We had tons of like little puppets and toys and stuff. And every time it was like one of the girls' birthdays, we would get like a bouquet of flowers, a cupcake for the girls, and then we would make like this found object like display with like little homemade cards for her. And it was so fun and wonderful. And it was just like the act of putting that intentionality into it. And it like you can literally go through your apartment. I love that. I love that like spontaneous creativity of like, I'm just picking up fun things in my place and I'm going to make a fort, not a fort, you know, I don't want to trigger you with your past, but
yeah,
a
shrine,
a scene. Yeah.
Yeah. A little area. I'm like that. I've kind of tried to do that now lately in my stand up and work, of the intent of like when I go up at night, because sometimes I can get into the monotonous auto zone. I call it that. Joe is making fun of me. I'm like, I'm in the auto zone.
In the zone.
Where now I'm like, okay, this is what you need to work on for this, that, you know, don't say, focus on not using little words in between your jokes. Like, what else? Sitting in the moment. If you don't get a laugh, move on. Don't lash out at the audience. And then you're going to try this one new bit or one new tag. And it's made things more enjoyable to have a purpose rather than being like, here I go slogging again at my stand-up and I'm kind of tired of doing the same jokes over and over again. Where I get, we've talked about that with cleaning too, or cooking, to be like, make just, it's not even physical effort. It's more of a mental mindset, and it changes your perspective to be, I think it makes me feel happier.
I do too. Yes, that's it. Like shifts you from like bored and like things aren't good enough for me to like being present in the moment and appreciating like the magic and beauty of life.
Yeah. Like just focus on some of these little things rather than just like skirting over them or being annoyed by it.
Yeah, boredom is such a toxic feeling. And it's almost like society wants you to feel bored, so you will like consume more. And I know I'm not the first person to have ever said that. I'm acting like, did I think of 1984? Did I write it? But
sometimes we forget, or like it stops getting talked about, and then you're like, why am I unhappy? And you're like, oh, because you're kind of told that you're bored.
Yeah.
And you think you need to consume. Yeah.
Yeah. And you're like letting yourself sit in that space of like, sorry, can you hear those sirens? It is so loud in here right now.
A little bit, not crazy.
Oh, okay. But yeah, you get in that feeling of like, well, I wanted new boots, you know, and like wanting to consume, and then you can't, and then you feel like you're not good enough. And it's like, what are you even doing?
Yeah, I know, because that's all where my consumption comes from, is because I'm bored and I don't know what to do with it, rather than like taking one moment in my life and realizing where I can kind of focus my energy on instead of like shopping. Even if it's like skincare, like I will do a mask tonight.
Yes.
That'll make me feel better. Or I'm going to like clip my fingernails and like buff them out and maybe put a polish on them that I already have, like, you know, something like that, rather than like going on Amazon and buying something.
And then you also, once you say you're going to do it, then you have to force yourself to do it, because you have to keep your promises to yourself. That's something I learned from a random motivational podcast by some bro that I probably heard a snippet of. I love, like, this is how TikTok is like, actually, I'm kind of outgrowing TikTok, I feel like, because now I'm just getting like this weird, like, melding of information where I saw something that was like, when your kid falls down, you shouldn't pick them up and be like, you're okay, because they're not okay. And then I also saw something else that was about like self-soothing behavior where like you tell yourself you're okay. So I'm like telling myself, I'm like, I'm okay. And I'm like, no, you don't say that.
Yeah.
You're not okay. I'm just like, everything is just combined into one fact that makes no sense now.
Yeah, it's like we are just getting bombarded with bonkers mixed messages. It's so crazy. Like everyone was all about like Julia Fox is our new feminist thing, and then now it's like, no, she's not, and here's why. And you're like, oh my God, what is happening? Like I don't understand what she did that was so wrong.
Yeah, I don't know who to believe.
I know.
Yeah, I'm kind of over TikTok too. Even I mean, I have been I still go on it for an hour every day, but more and more, more and more, I just like the one thing that I watch is I know how the algorithm works. So it's like I watch one cartoon and then I get like a deluge of cartoons, and it's like, that's not what I want. I want to like fun variety. I don't want 18 Abraham messages, which I feel like I can't skip past because I'm like, it's for me.
I know. Well, like there are some times where I'm like agreeing with a little bit of this video, but I know to scroll past it because if I stay on it too long, my algorithm will be flooded with like transphobic messages.
Yeah.
That you're like, okay, well, I'm not on that side either. So like, I don't need that kind of information being bombarded. But like, there was a TikTok the other day that I actually really enjoyed. This lady just asked a question of like, okay, what's the most unhinged thing that you've ever seen online? And it's like, this girl was talking about how much she adores her French or female friendship. And then everyone's like, oh, you should look into your unmasked, like maybe your homosexuality. And she's like, you guys, it's like you've never heard of Friends before. That I just have like latent homosexuality because I adore my female friends. Like it's insane the kind of like reading into everything everybody's doing. The other one was like somebody talked about they put a thing like saying happy birthday to their dad, and then somebody was like, you shouldn't do this because a lot of us don't have dads. And you're like, it's insanity, absolute insanity. I got one I put my keto diet joke on TikTok and somebody was like, people die of eating disorders all the time. This is so insensitive. Why? And you're like, I don't know. Have you ever heard of a joke? Like, clearly I'm not diminishing eating disorder.
Like how it couldn't be clearer what's happening. Like, what are you, a public speaker?
It was under the guy as comedian is in my title of the thing. Like, clearly I'm not diminishing eating disorders, but I am talking about it or whatever. Who cares if I'm like making light? Like everybody has a fucking eating disorder. Let's laugh about it.
Yeah. I know. It's like, it's almost like it's some like newsjacking, you know, which was like such a thing in the 90s where it's like, you like a brand like climbs onto a news story and you're the first person to comment on it. It's like that, but it's like drama jacking where it's like, you can't say that because you could hurt me or you could hurt somebody who's never had a leg before. And you're like, what? Never had a leg? It's
insane. I know. It's really fun. Like, I remember my friend came up with that term, what you're saying, jacking. He called it mommy jacking, where you would put up like something that you're proud of. And then a mom would come underneath it like, I wish I could do something like that, but I got to take care of 4 kids. Try waking up at 4 a.m. every morning. And you're like, all right, lady, like you just mommy jacked me with your bullshit.
Hilarious. That is so funny. Like, well, it seems like you have enough time to be on TikTok, mommy. That is so funny. I mean, I love it. I love the dysfunction.
Me too.
I'm like shifting back more to my books on tape, my self-help books on tape. Like I listened to one to kind of get me out of my funk that I was in last week, which is kind of interesting. It's called Unfuck Yourself. Have you ever heard of this one?
No, but I like it and I want to hear more about it.
The title I found jarring. It is written by a man. The man who wrote it, he narrates the audio version, and he's Scottish. So it's like kind of hilarious because he's like, what do you care about? Get up, get out of your bed. Stop crying. You're like, okay.
Yeah. Being such a baby.
Yeah, it's very funny, but it almost feels like it is kind of, I mean, parts of this book I did find really, really helpful. And this is how any self-help book is, right? You have to just like be discerning about like what you have to be like, that's not for me. But like, it did seem like parts of it were for, what I would call in a loving way, little bitches, maybe.
Yeah.
Like somebody that's just like never tried anything in their life. Like you have big dreams, but then you're afraid. And I'm like, well, I don't know. This isn't really for somebody in my situation where I'm like, he had this really hilarious analogy where he was like, if Arnold Schwarzenegger, he could climb to the top of his career, you could get your arse out of bed. And he's talking about like all about how Arnold Schwarzenegger, he like started from nothing in Europe in this small town, and then he like brutally climbed to the top. And I'm listening to this, I'm like, I guarantee, I'm like, let me use a little Google here and Google what Arnold Schwarzenegger's first major motion picture, how old was he? 22. How is this book helping me?
Yeah.
I'm 36 years old. I have faced so much more rejection than Arnold has ever even heard of in his life. So it's like these, I kind of like feel like some of these books, like these guys are just like completely out of touch with what people's struggles are. Cause it's like, you're using somebody who, what was Arnold trying for like 4 years? He was bodybuilding like through high school and college. Like that was it. Like,
yeah. And also like, some of this never takes into fact of luck.
yes.
It is
the fact that like Arnold looks a certain way that is very unique.
Yes, his facial structures are interesting. He managed to get his body, and that's hard work, but I bet you steroids were involved as well. Like,
yes. He was totally on steroids.
Also at a time being when I bet you there weren't as many bodybuilders as there are today, just as like, you know, it's like I get that way with Jerry Seinfeld when he spews his like what you need to do shit, and you're like, I'm sorry, Jerry. First of all, you were in the heyday of white guy comedy, and there's not as many of you guys.
Yeah, Jerry's advice is like, put a jar of cookies on your table, and then when you get a jar of cookies, when you get a cookie, just sit down to write a joke. And you're like, I write 8 hours a day.
Yeah.
6 pilots.
I know. And he would do like the same act for like 10 years.
Yeah. And also, I love shitting on Jerry Seinfeld, even though I do like him. I love the show, but I love the Larry David part of it. Let's be honest. But
yeah.
I do like Jerry Seinfeld, but like, you know, I've listened to his book. He's got a book called Is This Anything? Right? It's just literally thoughts that he had that he could have taken to an open mic.
Yeah.
And it is a book that people buy, and people are like, the new Jerry Seinfeld book. You're like, yeah, I have it. I have it on my computer.
Yeah.
Book that I've written.
Well, it's like, yeah, not begrudging Jerry Seinfeld. Like, yes, he is a talented person and he worked really hard for what he got. But like, I get so annoyed when you get advice from somebody that, you know, things change, industry changes, and it's just a different thing now that you're like, you don't even know how to edit videos, Jerry.
Yeah, it's just frustrating sometimes when like you get a self-help book and the self-help is so rudimentary. I guess maybe that's like a message for me, that it's like, maybe I don't need the self-help. Maybe you don't need the self-help book, Katie, because you're fine. But it's like I feel like I've talked about this one before. I used to love this self-help book called War of Art, which is, I think it's a really good self-help book because the way he kind of, have you ever read it? The War of Art?
No.
the way it's the guy who his only other claim to fame is apparently he wrote the screenplay for Legend of Bagger Vance, which it's like, who cares? But
Yeah.
he really loves to bring it up in the book. But the way this book is done is super interesting because he like personifies this feeling of resistance that you have that keeps you from doing the work that you need to do in order to, you know, like you need to, if you want to be a comedian, you need to write jokes consistently every day. But it's like, well, a lot of times like you sabotage yourself or something gets in the way or whatever. So he kind of like does a whole thing where he personifies it, and it's really interesting. But then he has like this other part of the book where he talks about like his own personal experience and how he was like living out of a van. And I just remember reading that being like, oh, I guess I'm doing great. I'm not even living in a van right now. So like, why did I buy this self-help book? Because this is for people who really need a lot more help than I do, because I'm not living in a freaking van.
Yes. I had that with, what was it? The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, where you're just like, oh, I actually think this might be for like socially stupid people, because yes, I am everything in there. I'm like, feels instinctual.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's for like dudes where it's like, be kind. Don't make someone mad by arguing with them immediately.
Yeah. Or telling them they don't know anything and that they should listen to you. And you're like, yeah, well, I've never done any of those things.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've seen a lot. The one that I did like was the Art of Not Giving a Fuck.
Oh,
Shit.
yes. I have read that one. I would like to read that again, because I do think there is something really empowering about shifting your energy away from that feeling of like, just shift
Yeah.
it. Go get the
Or-
cupcake.
From what I took with that is like, and I'm learning this apparently, and this is something that I see on TikTok a lot that I actually agree on, is to never take things personally.
Oh,
It's really hard, and it's like, it kind of makes, and I see how it benefits you to not to. It's like, just think about how when you first started doing stand-up and you would get heckles and how personally you would take it, and you could it was like really it wasn't the heckler that derailed your set, it was you, because you took it horrifically personal and you made it so weird for everybody.
yeah.
Where now when you get a heckle, you realize it's not a personal attack on you. I mean, sometimes it is, but like, who cares?
Yeah. Yeah, it just bounces off. Yeah.
You're in the mindset of like, okay, I don't need to be for everyone here. And so when you have that, take away that power, for some reason you end up dealing with the heckler better, and it benefits you more than being like, like being emotionally upset about it.
Yeah, just rampantly internalizing every interaction, like just constantly drained and upset.
Yeah, like
I want to re-listen to that one. I've been in like this space. I love saying that now. I've been in a space. I've been in a space of like, I'm really struggling. Well, you know, like that feeling when you find like that perfect self-help book or like that perfect TV show, and you're like, this is my show. Oh my God, I have a show. I'm so engaged. I love it. But like then 80% of the time is you're just like sifting through like self-help books being like, this one is terrible. This one's 14 hours long. I don't know if I have the bandwidth for that.
Yeah.
You know, and just like, I don't, that's where I am in my life right now. I'm just like trying to find, and it feels like nothing's clicking, and it's so frustrating because I just want to like hunker down on the couch with like my stories.
Yeah. Well, I remember we talked about that with Rosebud a little bit, of like, sometimes the act of like trying to self-help all the time is actually, I think, the mental disorder.
Yes.
When really, like, if you were totally fine, you would kind of just like accept that, okay, I just don't have that.
There's nothing to fix.
Or there's nothing I can do to fix it.
Yeah.
I get that with like having confidence. You're like, at this age, what is there to do? There's nothing. So I'm going to have to just like learn to deal with it.
Yeah, I know. I think there's a power too in like accepting the authenticity of your personality.
Yeah. you're like, okay, so maybe I do have a bitch face and I
So
could be a
what?
Debbie Downer, but like whatever, that's what kind of comedy is about, complaining. So that's just the road that I've chosen.
For comedy. Well, I
Yeah.
used to always feel like I would feel like, oh, I'm so awkward. I wish I wasn't awkward. But now I'm like, I kind of love it. You know, I think I just like grew into it where I'm like, this is the charm of my personality. And it's like, I have an awkward confidence. And that's even more fun. Like, uh-oh, I just ran into a door. Everyone saw, but I'm here. You know, and I think like there's something special to that in the way because it is like actually being authentic to my personality. And also like there are other awkward people out there and like can't we like get to be the cool fun one every now and then just because I fell down the stairs that means I can't have a good time in my life.
Yeah. Or can you take a little there's some power in knowing that you shifted the dynamic of the room.
I was like, I love leaning into it now. Like it feels like it happens, especially coat season. I'm just knocking stuff over. Like I was at my hairdresser today. I'm just like knocking stuff off the desk. Like, sorry. Anyway, see you in 2 months. Just like whatever. An awkward, charming woman. That's my brand.
Yeah. And then people will be like, that's so refreshing. I think about that. Like, have you ever watched Aubrey Plaza on an interview? You're like, this is horrific. And
Yeah.
she keeps getting stuff. So good for her.
Are you watching White Lotus, by the way?
No, I'm not. I watched the first season and there was something kind of slightly irritating about it. I think I can't get past the intro song, where it's like, and it's
Yeah.
like, I understand it's just like shitting on white or rich white people, but like to the point where you're like, I know
Yeah.
this is a trope that's like, I'm done with it. It's so old and boring to me.
Well, the first season, it was just like the characters were really interesting, but like the plot was just not that dynamic.
Yeah.
I have to say, I think you should really check out the second season because I am so on it and I think it is so much better. Mike didn't watch the first season. He watched the first episode and he was like, not for me. And he loves the second season. It's the drama is everything's heightened. It's so much better.
Okay, I am a huge fan of Aubrey Plaza. I really enjoy the roles that she takes.
Yeah.
And I like watching her on screen. I think she's like a fun performer and her choices.
Yeah, she's really good in this. And I cannot remember this guy's name, but it's the guy who in The Sopranos played Christopher Moltisanti. It's on the tip of my tongue.
Yeah.
It's like Michael.
I know who you're talking about. He plays like Spider in Goodfellas or something like that, right?
Yeah.
He's the guy they shot his foot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's in it. No. Oh no. Christopher's the nephew of Tony.
Oh, okay.
But he's in it too, and he's really great. He's just so charming and fun, and the acting is just it's so good. It's all so good this season. There's a lot of British people on it, weirdly.
Yeah.
Like 3 people are British, and they're just pretending to be American.
Well, that's a lot. We talked about that where you're like, I think they actually work on acting over there instead of like, oh, if you're a TikTok sensation, then you get to be in the biggest movie.
Yeah, or they just like getting famous from commenting that's my trauma on people's like recipe posts.
Yeah.
Like, that's my trauma movie.
Yeah. I started, if we're talking about TV shows, I'm a little late to this, but I always heard good things about it. So I decided to watch over this past weekend. The other two, it's about a brother and sister of a sibling that's like a young teeny pop star, and it's about their life, how chaotic it is. And Molly Shannon's in it, and the jokes are so funny.
The jokes are so good. I've been kind of getting back into it too. I love watching not comedy, so this is like a little bit hard for me. I love the jokes and I find I need like someone's life needs to be in danger for me to be into the TV show, I think.
Yeah.
But yeah, it is so good. And Ken Marino is in it. And he is just such an incredible performer. I've loved him in everything he's ever been in. Party Down, that's one of the all-time best sitcoms I've ever seen in my life.
He plays the best. I put him in the category of Will Arnett, like the confident dipshit.
Yeah.
He's so funny and so funny. I'm so glad you mentioned Ken Marino. I'm like, because I don't think people think of him that much when you think of great comedic actors, but you're like, I cannot, every role he does, he's like the funniest person on screen, or all of his storylines are way better than everybody else's storyline.
He's so good. Party Down has to be one of my top 5 favorite comedy shows.
Yeah.
It's so good. Have you ever seen Burning Love? I know I've mentioned that on here before. It was a web series Bachelor parody, and Ken Marino was the Bachelor, and he's a firefighter, and so it's called Burning Love, and he, instead of being like a rose, he's like, will you accept my hose? And he like gives the girls, like, it's like very phallic, but a bunch of comedians are in it. It's so funny. Natasha Leggero is in it. Oh my God, now I'm blanking on this guy's name. Damn it. Maybe I'll come back to it. Jennifer Aniston does a cameo. Ben Stiller is in it as well. It's so funny. It's so funny.
Ken Marino in The State?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. That's how, I guess, where he started. Like, I never thought of him. I remember back in the day watching The State, and he wasn't one of the performers that stood out to me. But then as time goes by, and like with Party Down, that is when I was like, oh, this guy's fucking funny. And I think he may have been in that movie Wanderlust, or maybe that he was really good in.
I don't think I saw that. But The State, in case you guys don't know, was a famed NYU sketch troupe circa, I don't know, was it like the mid-90s that they were active?
Yeah, because it was big with me and my high school friends.
Oh, was it?
Like freshman year, which was like 93.
I didn't learn of it until I started stand-up. When I was in college.
It was on MTV.
Oh, was it?
Yeah. It was, yeah, it was on MTV. I think it was an MTV sketch show. Good stuff.
Good stuff. And my old other favorite sketch show is Kids in the Hall.
That's a good one. It's so funny to think like a lot of their humor was derived from like them dressing in women's clothing. And you're like, it's so crazy now that I feel like a lot of sketches don't let you do that.
Yeah. And I also like look back, and you like watch another one, you're like, oh my God, those guys are like 24. I think it's just like 24-year-old dudes like goofing.
Yeah, I know, but it's so weird. It's like, I remember, when I went to UCB, I was 30. So I was hanging out with 22, 24-year-old dudes. And I remember being like, why are these guys funny? They were never funny to me. And then we were like, but I found those guys funny.
Yeah. Well, they were Canadian, but
yeah.
They did have a really interesting, maybe they were a little older, actually, now that I think about it. They probably just looked young, but they were probably like early 30s.
Yeah.
Like such an interesting, like some of their jokes were so absurdist, like the guy who just like Mr. Cabbage Head.
Yeah. Like the squishing the head.
Oh, so funny. I love that absurdist, like mid-90s.
Yeah. Well, that's what The State was, where like my friend and I would always quote, oh yeah, 40,000 worth of pudding, and then I'm going to stick my butt in it. And you're like, it makes no sense. And it was just silly. But it was just like fun to quote those lines.
I love silly funny.
I do too. But sometimes you see it and you're like, this is just dumb.
Yeah. It's a fine line between like the absurdism and like goofy and like wit wordplay, it's hard. But let's wrap it up.
I can feel myself like.
I know. I'm slowly getting sleepy, but this was a good one. We banged it out. We banged it out for you guys. We love everyone in the Patreon.
Thank you. We got new Patreon. This will come out this will be like in the 3rd week. So we do know that we have a lot of stone dedications coming up. So stay tuned. That should probably be coming, our stone dedications for the January show or February show.
I feel like they're going to come out right at the first episode of the new year. That's when we'll be doing the stone dedications. And I have some very special stones lined up in my home for those. So thank you guys so much for joining, and stay tuned for your stone.
Yeah. Lady Journey.
Lady Journey.